Hello, welcome back to Late Night Live. I'm John Coombs, and we'll be looking at what's on in Holmfirth tomorrow and this weekend for the Holmfirth Arts Festival. Tonight I'll be joined by Charlie Wells, who will sing us a song from the parade, and Kathy and Andrew from Thingamajig Theatre. Now, today some people have asked me if the guests I have on the show here are actually in the studio with us, and yes indeed they are. Hello Charlie.
Hello John.
There we are, and we can prove this because I put another camera up. If we wave to this camera up here, hello, there we are. I'll also be talking to Mark Worth from Highly Sprung Theatre about his show Urban Astronaut, but first of all let's have a look at what's on in Holmfirth tomorrow. First of all, Chris Ruffoni will have his solar phones in the Homeside Gardens behind the post office there tomorrow afternoon and Sunday afternoon from 12 till 4, and they really are magical instruments. They have solar panels on the top and these trigger various percussion. It's all very secret. He wouldn't tell me what it was exactly within the plywood cylinders, and it's a gorgeous sound. He has several of these hanging around off the trees in Homeside Gardens. Valley Beats will be playing in the town centre at 1:15, 3:15 and 4:30. They'll be wandering about, you'll be able to catch them, you won't miss them. They're loud drumming sounds from Valley Beats. We'll also have in the churchyard tomorrow the Story Shed, and this is the Holmfirth Writers Group, and they invite you to come with your ideas and thoughts, and they will turn them into poems and letters and stories, and they'll be in the churchyard from 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock. So call in if you have some ideas. Just go along if you've just got one thought, and they'll work with that and make it into a story or a poem. Tomorrow afternoon we will have Circo Rambaba, who brought us Crow House a few years ago. They will return with The Whale, which is a life-size sperm whale, I'm told. And they'll be in the Methodist Church Gardens. I'll be talking a little bit more about that later on, and we'll see a film of them. Hebden Bridge brings Thingamajig Theatre, presenting their show Kit and Caboodle. They'll be in Homeside Gardens too, at 12:15 and 2:30. So that's two shows, and it's a show for all the family. And Kathy and Andrew from Kit and Caboodle will be joining me later to talk a little bit about the show. As I mentioned, we've got Highly Strung Theatre with Urban Astronaut. This show is a procession. It starts outside the Picturedrome and it ends in the Towngate car park. I think they're going to be doing two shows at 1:30 and 3:30, starting at the Picturedrome. Then we've got the Haydedge Brass Band. This is the full band, the award-winning band. They'll be playing in the Civic Hall at 5:30. Later on in the Civic Hall, there's a comedy Triple Bill, where we will have Pete Selwood, who we've seen on the show last night, and we've got Sita Wrightson from Bradford, and there will be Kieran Hodgson, who will be returning, local Holmfirth comedian, will be returning for the final of that triple bill at the Holmfirth Civic Hall tomorrow evening. So, I mentioned Urban Astronaut earlier on. They're starting in the Picturedrome at 1:30. Here's a little taste of what you might expect from their show.
Computers are finally in control of all the vehicle's critical functions. T-minus 17 seconds to contact. 15.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff. 2, 1, 0.
Day 237. I don't know how much more of this I can take. Alone, up here, watching the world spinning on its axis, a tiny blue marble suspended in space.
that was Highly Sprung Theatre with Urban Astronaut. And earlier this week I spoke to Mark, the urban astronaut himself, and he told me about the story of this astronaut that's sent back from the future to discover what went wrong on planet Earth and whether or not it's too late for us to do something about it. So I did a quick interview with Mark. Hi, Mark. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. Tell me a little bit about the backstory of the urban astronaut.
He's been traveling through space for generations. He and his descendants have been on the lookout for a new planet, a new home. And eventually he comes back to planet Earth. And for the urban astronaut, it's more of a fascination of what he finds.
It's a wondrous journey for him.
Absolutely. So there is a moment where he sees plants for the first time, and it makes him feel nervous. He doesn't understand what's going on. He's very much the observer and almost a victim.
The astronaut meets a character called Hope. Just tell us a little bit about her.
She is absolutely everything that her name suggests. She offers humanity hope and a possible future. So for us, she is that individual who's been left behind, and she has discovered a way of creating air for herself. She plants beautiful little plants around the space. She has a structure that she collects rainwater. She's got bikes which pedal and sort of spread that air that she's producing through those plants as well. And she's somebody who offers hope. And actually, when the astronaut and his crew arrive and they carry on destroying, because they haven't learned their lessons of the past, they continue destroying her space. She's the one who actually stands up as a really strong, positive female character and says, no, this is not the way. And in fact, the only word that we have in the whole show is no.
And how did the initial ideas develop for this show?
We were just sort of scrolling through, I think, online, and somebody put up a quote, a Native American, a Cree proverb, which said, only when the last tree has fallen, the last fish has been caught, and the last stream has been poisoned, will man realize that he cannot live on money alone. And so we thought, well, what would happen? What happens if we set it in that future, when the last tree has fallen, when the fish is gone, when the stream is poisoned?
You yourself are the astronaut, am I right?
I am, for my sins. Although I keep on telling everyone I'm a bit too old to be lifted up in the air and spun around.
But you aren't exactly in control, are you?
No, not at all. So, and this is something that's been really interesting. We've worked with a couple of other performers, and as a performer, you have to be in complete control of everything, whether it's the audience's emotions, whether it's standing in the right light, or even sort of speaking above music or anything like that. You are in control. But as the astronaut, you have to absolutely relinquish all control. We describe it as animated puppetry. So I am an animated puppet. I do go along, I interact, I look at people, I shake their hands, or I touch something that they're holding. People have given me umbrellas before, or balloons. And there have been hundreds of thousands of people who've seen it now. That actually everyone in some way or another engages with that theme of climate change, that actually we have to work together to solve this problem.
Thank you very much indeed, Mark.
Thank you. I look forward to performing for you all on Saturday.
Mark Worth there from Highly Sprung Theatre. Go and see their show, Urban Astronaut. It starts tomorrow at the Picturedrome at 1:30 and processes round to the post office car park. And then we have another show at 3:30 tomorrow afternoon. Now, earlier on, we saw Charlie. She's come from Edgeland Arts. Hello, Charlie.
Hello.
The parade on Sunday, it's not going to be like the past parades. I believe the theme is the history of Home Firth.
Yes, we've got a potted history of Home Firth, beginning from the woodland beginnings all the way through to green fruit futures and hopes for the future.
And what are we going to see?
Well, we're going to see lots of live music. There's a folk band, there's a percussion ensemble called Banda Narua, which will be really vibrant and exciting. And there will be some big sheep parading, possibly.
Sheep.
Yeah, sheep. Yeah, well,
Oh, we've got live sheep coming in?
No, we draw the line at live sheep, although there will be noisy sheep.
Oh, good.
So hopefully we'll see how that goes. There's a few soundscapes amongst the live music, so see what you can hear.
And it starts in Hollowgate and it progresses through the town and down Bridge Street, past the Foundry, the cricket club, and it ends up in Sands. Is there going to be a sort of a culmination event?
Yeah, so there's going to be a finale event there, and the Home Valley Singers are joining us, and they're going to be singing a song that's been written especially for the parade. And we will also see little sections of the parade repeated, and there's some narration, and you'll get, so if you've missed it in the actual parading, you've got a chance to see it there.
Right. Well, there is a great history of singing in Home Firth. I remember growing up in Home Firth and having the Home Firth Feast sing. And then it came back a couple of years ago, didn't it? There was a big
So it
big sing.
It faded a bit in the 70s and 80s, and then in 1990 they did an event, a kind of centenary event almost. And then we did, in 2018, we did the Big Sing, where they commissioned some new works, and there was a big culmination event, about 250 singers and players in Victoria Park, with some beautiful banners that were created for the event.
So, the song you've written, we can see, if we go to the wide shot again, we can see you put a keyboard there. So, Charlie, can you give us a little bit of the song tonight?
I can give you a little bit of the song, hopefully, yep. Okay. From hills and glorious woodland, Home Firth came. The farmers and the hunters of the game. Came weavers and believers, making cloth fit for a king. Then came progress to this town, built upon rock and grit and wool. The water shapes us, the wind it blows right through us, the woods surround us, and Home Firth people love to sing of our valley, of our homeland in Home Firth, of our valley, of our homeland in Home Firth.
That was lovely.
Thank you.
You wrote and arranged all that?
Yeah.
And it will be sung by a choir.
Yeah.
So that is, I think that will be magnificent. How big is the choir?
So it's the Home Valley Singers. I'm not sure entirely exactly how many because they've only returned back in September, and so we're hoping there'll be about 20-25 people. It's in 3 parts, so there will be some more parts going on there as well, and I'll be accompanying it as well, and yeah, it should be. I'm really looking forward to hearing them.
And this is what you do. The idea of storytelling through music is very much what you're doing at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's how I understand the world is music. So I tell stories using it, and I also quite often go back to using heritage and history to tell stories from people that might not have had their stories written down in the past. So looking at World War One with Trent Symphony and Selby 950 for their Abbey, and now Home Firth has its own heritage song. So.
But that's fantastic. And there's more to that song. Obviously, that was just one verse there. There'll be more being sung. in Sands, in the football ground next door to the playground, between the playground and the bowling ground, I think it is, which is where the parade on Sunday will end up. It starts in Hollowgate at 2 o'clock, it moves through the town and ends up on the football ground at Sands. So don't miss that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, Charlie.
Thank you.
Thingamajig Theatre will be appearing tomorrow at Homeside Gardens. Grabs a piece of paper. They will be appearing at 12:15 and 2:32 shows. Here, their show is called Kit and Caboodle, Caboodle with a C. And here's a little bit of their show. And that was Kit and Caboodle by Thingamajig. Thingamajig? Thingamajig, not Thingamabob. Got to get it right. Kathy will be cross with me if I get it wrong. And they're joining me today. Hello, Kathy. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Dan.
Hello. So, Kit and Caboodle, can you just tell me a little bit about what the show is?
Well, Kit and Caboodle is a street theater show. It's which Kathy and I perform, and it's built around a pack mule puppet. And so we'll roll onto the area where the show is going to be, and we'll set up the show, or the pack mule sort of undoes bags and cases. And without words, we tell the story of 3 different stories of migration, of people who, for whatever reason, move from one place to another, and tell it through various styles of puppetry and live music and a little bit of clowning and a little bit of physical theater. These are the 3 stories, and are simply, the first story is an Irish folk tale, and we use a style called a cranky, which is a scrolling picture, and that tells a story about a woman coming to America to looking for a better life. The second story is about a South Sudan woman who has to leave her country and takes with her whatever she has, whatever's important, and which is her cooking pot. And we make a sort of a magical, realistic story about how this cooking pot helps her. And then the last one is a sort of compare and contrast of a young girl in World War II evacuee times, and then also a young Syrian girl who has to leave her country as well. And laced throughout all of that is also the story of animal migration. About we tell this through this line of this butterfly who, of course, migrates every year as part of their life cycle. A monarch butterfly.
Well, yes, we saw elements of that. We saw the butterflies, we saw the cooking pot. And one of the things I love is the way that everything is on the mule, which I believe is called Kit. And Kathy, you're at the front of this, and How many boxes and suitcases are there to open?
About 53.
No.
I don't know. There's a lot.
There's a lot, and they contain. What I found fascinating was this difference in scale. We've sometimes got sort of life-size puppets, and we've sometimes got very small puppets, and then you build scenes around these, from the sea to trains and cities, and everything like that. I believe you've got some puppets with us.
Yes,
Sure.
and I think that's the magical thing about puppetry. You can use it in a very filmic way, so that this is Magbula, our woman from South Sudan, who first appears in a very domestic setting in her kitchen, in her home place, and then for various reasons she has to start on a journey, and we have a conversation together, a visual conversation together, and then she has to leave her home, and then we sort of zoom out, and we see this version of Magbula as she's starting to make her journey away from her home to another home, and that's her story of her journey. And there she is taking her cooking pot. We have several versions of the cooking pot as well, so that you get the different scale.
Yeah. And who's this?
This is Mary. This is our little girl from the Second World War, and she is sent on her own journey, and we try and tell the story. As Charlie was saying, she tells her story with music. Well, we use music as well, but we try to use visual images that are very, very evocative. For example, when I pull this knitted hat out, a certain age group in the audience will go, "Oh, I remember that. I remember wearing one of those," and it brings back all the memories of knitting patterns and your mum and your grandma knitting things for you. And then one of the most heartbreaking things, I think, is that the children get a label stuck on them, so that their new person will be able to find them. And then, of course, as just before she gets put on the train, she gets a little miniature. I'm doing it back to front because in the show I do it on the other side, but that's the right side. So that's Mary going off to her hopefully safe home during the Second World War.
So these let me just I moved the camera there so that Andrew could see what he was doing with the puppets. They have to see what's going on. So it's a story about journeys and travel. Now you Kathy haven't had a great journey. You're a local lass from Bradford originally, but Andrew.
But I have been down south.
Oh well, that is a story.
Yes, yes. I lived there for a while, much to the horror of my father, but that's a different story.
Apart from the deprivation of down south thing, Andrew, you come from Korea via America.
That's right. Yes.
So what was that?
Yeah. So this story, this play is near and dear to me because I feel like the story of migration is something that, well, I mean, it's something that's you hear about a lot in the news, especially in recent days, about the refugee crisis, but also before that about Brexit and closing borders and all this, and you hear that news and sometimes you forget about the people behind it. And of course, being a first-hand immigrant, first to the United States and then from the U.S. to here, I wanted to find a theatrical way in the medium that we love to tell the stories, to tell real human stories, because the thing that theater can do, of course, is that we we can ask people to empathize with what is really happening, not just the statistics, not just the sort of the shock horror news that you hear. And so we wanted to tell the stories of why people might move and what the hardships that they might find, but also the joy of and the adventure of going somewhere new. And of course, that's been my experience. It hasn't always been easy, but you know, my family moved to the United States, suburbs of Chicago, when I was 6 years old, and then I spent the next 30-some years there growing up. I mean, not Chicago, but in the United States, growing up, getting an education, becoming a puppeteer. And then I came here in 2002, and I came here to work on a show, a masked theater show for a company called Horse and Bamboo. And there I met Kathy, and she was also in the cast. And then, you know, that few years later, then suddenly we were married, and
So there wasn't anything sudden about it.
no, that wasn't sudden. Anyway, and then of course it's slightly different when you immigrate somewhere as a child, because you don't have the choice to come, and you're just sort of learning how to adapt with it. But of course I came here in my 30s, and so I had a different experience, and I spoke the language more or less. And and then of course I already had been a puppeteer for some time in the States, so that developed that.
So is this then quite a personal story for you?
The issues of personal, I mean, I don't personally tell my story
No,
in this, but
no.
the issue of fleshing out and telling the story of migration and immigration, and showing some of the hardships and the joys of it, that's very personal. And I want everyone to understand that. There's a reason why people will drop everything, disconnect from their history, their past, their families, what they have, their friends, and to pick up and move. That's a very big traumatic move. And it's a very exciting move, but it's also a very dangerous move. And so there's a lot at stake when somebody makes that choice. And so if anyone's going to make that choice, I have a lot of respect for that, because it is a massive life change. And so instead of just looking at the statistics or the numbers or these pictures, it's more like, what's that person doing there? Why did they put everything on the line so they could cross that channel, or they could, hop on that train, or take that airplane, or whatever? What's going on there, and what are they leaving, or what are they trying to find? And of course, that's the story of human in all of history, because we've all, I mean, if we look at our ancestry, we all come from several different, which is the irony. It's like immigration isn't a new issue. Immigration is something that has happened through all of humanity, and it happens in all of nature as well. And it's the most normal, it's the most beautiful and natural thing that happens. But every generation says, "Oh no, we've got to close the borders now," and it's just a lie.
Well, I remember reading a long time ago about the great migration that happened, I don't know, hundreds of years ago, maybe thousands of years ago, when Russia and the Balkans sort of swapped over. But in those times, there weren't borders as such. People lived with all their entourage, like you do with your with Kit the mule, with all the stuff on board. So they were just basically moving through the land, and there weren't those borders. But you say it's a family show, obviously, and the children involved there. Kathy, what are the bright points? What's going to make us laugh?
There's a little bit of a cheeky caterpillar to watch out for.
We did see that in
You
the
saw
film just
that.
then.
You
Yeah.
saw a little preview of the caterpillar. Yes. So watch out for what happens to the caterpillar and his family.
Right. Well, that's something that you should look out for. Tell the children. Go and see the show in Homeside Gardens tomorrow at 12:15 and 2:30. See it twice, because you might miss things the first time. Thank you very much, Kathy
Thank you.
And Andrew, for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Also tomorrow afternoon in the Methodist Church Gardens down by the Co-op, Circo Rumbaba will be presenting their show The Whale at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock. The programme said there was a show at 3 o'clock. That, unfortunately, will not be taking place tomorrow. It's just 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock. The show takes place beside a life-size inflatable sperm whale, where you will meet characters from Underwater Tales and discover about our oceans, some of the problems that we face, and maybe some of the solutions, how we could protect our oceans. Here's a short clip from their show last year. And there we go, Circo Rumbaba with the whale. And as I mentioned, because of COVID and to keep everybody safe, they'll be performing it outside the whale tomorrow. And to finish up, here are the Haydage Band playing Ravenswood during lockdown last year. The Haydage Band will be playing in the Civic Hall tomorrow at 5:30. There we are, the Haydage Band, and they'll be playing, the full band will be playing, the full award-winning band will be playing all in one place tomorrow at 5:30 in the Civic Hall. If you want to book tickets for this or any of the other events we've mentioned, go to the Home Firth Arts Festival website, click on What's On, and follow the links to book tickets. A lot of the events that are happening outside are free events that you can just be in the street and watch. So that's about everything for tonight. Thank you very much to Charlie and Mark and Andrew and Kathy, and until tomorrow at the same time, when I'll be joined by Tom Holman-Sheard, musician, Tony Wade from Edgeland Arts, who'll be talking about the models in the parade, and the percussionists Katie Mallard and Gillian Spooner, who will be tapping out some beats for us here in the studio. So until then, good night, and go down to Home Firth in the morning and find out what you can see on the street.